there, welcome to our science review, and for this time we're just going to review the different phase change in matter as it is already being discussed when you were in a lower year. Let's see we can do with this one. So phase change in matter may involve most substances. They exist in three states depending on the temperature and atmospheric pressure, and the best example for that is water, because water can be in solid form. When it is cooled down, it turns out or it turns into an ice. Then finally, adding heat to it will make the particles move and they melt. And adding more heat means that they will turn into another state, and that is in a gas form. So phase means that it is the states of substance. It may be in a solid, in a liquid, or even in a gas form. They coexist as physically distinct parts of a mixture. Then definitely we just need to understand that whenever we heat or we add heat to it or remove the heat, then phase change will happen. So here, let's talk about those phase change that requires energy, meaning we need to add heat to it. First on the list is that it is melting. For all we know, it turns solid to liquid. And obviously, that if our example is the ice, when it is in a low temperature, the particles are being compressed that makes them the solid form. But like what we discussed about the kinetic molecular theory of matter, that whenever we add energy to it or heat energy, it excites or it makes particles move, or we increase the movement of the particles. So water has high temperature than the ice. Yes, although ice is also water, but to put them in a liquid form, then we need to increase the temperature. The reason why water has high temperature than the ice. The heat transpires from an object with higher temperature. It will always start with an object with a higher temperature. Then it will move or be distributed to an object with a lower temperature. The reason why, you see what happened in this ice as it melts. Hydrogen bonds between water molecules break, so they might move apart and enter a liquid phase. Look at the animation and see how the particles move from being compressed and solid. Adding heat to it makes the particles move. And aside from that, since the hydrogen bonds are so strong, there is really a need for a big amount of energy to break them apart. Like this, you need to increase the energy or the heat in order to break them apart. If we are going to compare the salt and the ice, the energy needed to melt the ice is much less than the energy needed to melt the salt. It is because if we're going to look at the ionic bonds of the salt or sodium chloride, they are much stronger than the hydrogen bonds in the ice. So you'll be needing more and more heat energy just to melt an ice or sodium chloride. The second one in the list that requires energy is vaporization. It changes the liquid into gas. When vaporization occurs only on the surface of the liquid, then that process is only called evaporation. Again, if that happens only on the surface of the liquid, we call that evaporation. Even in a cold temperature, some substance can evaporate. And evaporation is a method by which your body also controls its temperature. In order to cool down the body because of extreme heat, your body tends to produce more sweat in order to cool it down. Then, vapor pressure is needed when the pressure exerted by the vapor from the liquid. It's like you're boiling or need to reach the boiling point. This is the temperature at which the vapor pressure is equal to the atmospheric pressure, turning this liquid into gas state. The third in the list is called the sublimation. In the sublimation, it turns solid into gas. Solid iodine and solid carbon dioxide or dry ice is an example or are an example of this sublimation. They really turn the solid into ice without even melting. Melt balls that contains compound of naphthalene or dichlorobenzene sublimate also turn solid into gas state, again without turning this solid to liquid or melting. So again, those are the phase change in matter that requires energy to happen. Remember, evaporation or vaporization, we have melting and sublimation. And the other part or the other group are the phase change that releases energy or needs to release energy, decreasing energy, such as number 1 is condensation, wherein the gas turns into liquid. When the energy is lost or when the heat energy is decreased, the velocity of the movement of the particles is being reduced. So in this case, the vapor molecules likely interact and form a hydrogen bond when they collide with each other. The formation of the cloud is the best example of this. The water vapor coming from the surface of the water, when it reached the point wherein it is much, or the temperature is much colder than the surface of the water, then this gas may now turn into its liquid phase, meaning from extreme movement of the particles, then now they are turning or starting to move closely to each other and slowing down the motion of the particles. The formation of hydrogen bonds signals the change from vapor phase to liquid phase. Moisture is another example of condensation. The reverse of condensation is vaporization. When vaporization means that liquid may turn into gas, then condensation means that gas will turn into liquid phase. When hydrogen bonds form a liquid water, energy is being released. It slows down the motion of the particles. In condensation also, a vapor molecule that comes in contact with the surface of a cold window glass transfers its heat to the cold glass. So therefore, it forms moist. And here are some of the examples of condensation. Next is the freezing. It turns liquid into solid. As heat is being removed from the water, the molecules lose kinetic energy and they tend to compress each other, turning it to solid form. Like what I told you, velocity decreases in terms of the motion of the particles. In freezing, this is the reverse of melting. They have to reach the freezing point in order to solidify the substance. Again, the temperature at which liquid changed into crystalline solid is called freezing point. And in here, let us see, are some of the example of what freezing is. Next is in the list, the last one, deposition. Gas to solid, or changing gas into solid without even turning it into liquid phase. So no change in liquid phase, and remember, in deposition, it really turns gas into solid automatically. When water vapor high up in the air changes directly into ice crystals, you get this one, a snowflake or even a frost. Those are examples. So remember, when we decrease temperature, this phase change will happen. Freezing, deposition, and condensation. And when we increase the temperature, the different phase will happen, like melting, evaporation or vaporization, and sublimation. And I hope you learned something from our discussion today. Thank you very much for listening. See you again on the next review of the topic. This is your teacher signing off. Bye-bye.